Good evening, council. How many are we expecting?
Hey, Mr. Posey, can we redo that?
Okay,
Let's get it, is it recording?
okay.
Oh, it is recording?
That takes a minute.
Okay, I just didn't.
All right,
okay,
thanks,
never
sir.
mind. Just want to make sure it's budget hearing number 2.
Okay, so we're good on recording? All right.
Thank you. So the main thing for the recording, this is budget hearing number 2, but it's video number 3, since we had the break in the other. So if anyone's watching this as we begin, we'll start with Fleet, and we'll run through the departments to finish out in the next 2 hours or less.
All right.
Okay, I'll try to be pretty quick about this. Well, the handout is just to kind of help with the illustrations of some things I'm going to talk about. And it follows the guidelines of this template that we have, but it's just easier for me, really. So let's get started with the operating request. I'm requested to increase the operating budget by $480,000. There's a discrepancy there to $417,000 on that line item. I'm not sure if I had made a mistake or there was miscommunication, but I just went with the number that I put in my budget template. And I guess there's something in Tyler Munis that was a miscommunication. But we had to do a $400,000 budget amendment in 24, so that's pretty much in line with that. And we've got an aging fleet. At about a third of our public safety vehicles are approaching 150,000 miles, and that typically dictates and indicates a increase of maintenance cost. So, but we're working on getting that taken care of. Any questions? Okay, overtime request, I'm requesting $10,000 increase for just any unknowns. I ran into some unknowns from last year that ended up having an individual that went on workman's comp, and we had to compensate that, and we were cutting it a little bit too close. So that's what that increase is about. Moving on. Okay. So the next is a new position and/or upgrade. I'm requesting a shop foreman position or an upgrade position. I'm not sure I'm going to lean on human resources for that. And this is basically to help me guide the department in the direction that we're going. And I foresee big things, and that's going to be in the next paragraph. So next paragraph addresses the RC3 program. So I've been in meetings with Dr. Smith, the executive director out there, and I see where we can fit in as a city and serve the community by representing and sponsoring 2 students. And it's very, very minimal at $15,000, and we can bring them in and hopefully help our community and build our fleet department from inside up, maybe spark some interest in students or young adults to come do public service like we do. So the next paragraph is one fleet assistant. This is basically a mechanic with moderate skill set. We've had some obstacles hiring, and I think the industry shows that any type of skill set is needed, and it's kind of in line with if we can ever get a rotation of something and RC3 comes along, we have students that graduate and want to come into public service and public safety, and they come in our home, and we build them from the ground up. So that being said, I've got an illustration here just to, again, it's just to help justify a little bit. I am asking for really an upgrade in a position and a couple interns. But when you see the industry standards for vehicle to technician ratio, we fall into the cities and counties area there. That's that top illustration. And 60-1 is preferred, and that's out of Government Fleet Magazine. And our fleet department is 115-1. And we've got to be creative to be able to do and take care of what we take care of. And that's a total of 806 vehicles. That is including the city of Pelham, and 1,430 total assets that we manage along with Pelham's assets as well. So just below that, there's a few examples of, just comparable examples of cities around us. And I'm not going to go through all that so we can move on. But I've got examples of Hoover's information and Homewoods in the city of Tuscaloosa. And that's something to look at when you're bored. So the next page is the vehicles, all vehicle requests. And I've marked them all as high priority, medium, and low. And looking and trying to be as lean as possible, $1.5 million was my target. And of course, we need a lot more than that, but I believe we can do this in steps and decrease our maintenance. So, and in that, we've got a couple of department head vehicles being requested as a stipend increase and/or vehicle. And the industry standard as today is for an executive is $800 to $1,500. And we've been on a $400, taxed $400 stipend for approximately 20 years. And there's been some questions if there was anything anybody could take into consideration to do something about that. That's in this list. Next page is the equipment request. And
Mr. Moore, I
Yes,
do
ma'am.
have a quick question on that. I just want to understand. So right now, department heads either have a vehicle or they take the stipend. Is that
Yes,
how it
ma'am.
works? And the stipend has been the same for the last 20 years. It's the $400 per month. Is that right?
correct.
Okay. And then, so what you're suggesting here is either that the stipend needs to be increased or we need to purchase additional vehicles to cover those who are currently taking the stipend?
For consistency across the board, from what I'm understanding from department heads, is they either want to see an increase in stipend or a signed vehicle
Okay.
that's compatible to what other people are getting.
Okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
ma'am. I'm sorry, I didn't mean, I was moving on too fast.
Hey, Dustin. Sorry. And what was the stipend that you recommend?
Industry standards, $800 to $1,500 for executive employees.
So $800 is the bare minimum?
That's correct.
All right.
That's in research. Did I move on too fast, or are we good for equipment? Okay.
Confused though on the $45,000 number. One department head vehicle or stipend increase. So a stipend increase of $400 would only be $5,000 a year.
Right.
So that $45,000 number represents what?
A potential vehicle purchase.
So if we did the stipend increase, you're talking about a much smaller number,
Correct.
which would lower your 1.5 million.
Correct. Well, it's actually not figured into the 1.5.
It's not? Okay.
It's NA, not applicable until we get, whatever
I'm
you
with
guys
you.
approve.
Gotcha. Thank you, sir.
Could I add something else in there? When the city purchases a vehicle, then there's also the cost of maintenance and gasoline and insurance. That would be on top of that $45,000 cost to the city. So when you're comparing, the difference between a stipend versus a purchase of a vehicle, it's really much more cost to the city to have a vehicle. Does that help?
Is there a number that you recommend?
I think what we had discussed internally was possibly an increase to $600 a month, to go from $400 to $600. Of course, I don't want to be recommending something less for department heads, of which I'm one who receives a stipend. So I probably should recuse myself from that suggestion.
Well, the initial discussions, we haven't dove into that because we need to look at it, but I think you have 13 positions that receive a stipend, or is that right? So the amount is kind of insignificant for what we're doing. We want to study it. The point becomes 400 has been that way for a significant number of years, and it deserves studying to figure out what is fair in the marketplace. But it does affect the number of vehicles requested by the departments for their own transportation around town and to meetings, et cetera. So we're trying to figure out what that is, but we've not had time to study it yet to give you a recommendation.
How much time would you need?
Before the budget gets proposed.
Okay.
Great. Is there any questions on equipment? All right, moving forward, that's pretty much the end of it, but the following are illustrations and renderings from automotive training facility that's currently under construction at the RC3 program. And that's, Dr. Smith sent me these, and, seeing the construction and putting eyes on these renderings, it makes a whole nother, shows me a whole nother world, and it's top notch. Just want to share that with you all.
Well, kudos, you reaching out to Dr. Smith and RC3. I think that's a great alliance. I know that the council and the city definitely have a love for Hoover City Schools, and if there's some way we can do things internally to create and recruit our own workforce, I think that's a fantastic job that you've done, Dustin, so thank you.
Thank you.
One note on this list, when we started the list, when we had the department meetings with Dustin and all the other departments, if you notice, the fire truck and the transport unit are not on this, and that goes back to when you heard fire, we're talking about using like revenue funds for like expenses. So that's part of where we pulled that off, and that helped have the 1.5 million be more specific to other citywide vehicle needs. So he pulled that off. That took off, what was that total, 1.6 million?
That's right.
Just with those two apparatus. So that's why they're not on this list. So keep in mind, there is a fire truck and an ambulance out there, but they would be funded through the transport fees if y'all agree to do that.
Any other questions for Fleet? All right, thank you, sir. Moving on to planning and zoning.
Good evening. Wanted to run with you guys through the fiscal 25 Planning and Zoning Department budget requests. We do have a few increases that we are requesting across operation, capital, and personnel. So I'll go through those rather quickly. Following along with your summary, the first in operating, we are requesting $20,000 in addition to where we were last year. And the $20,000, we are specifically looking for that to go towards our abatement account. Two things. One, we did exhaust our funds in the abatement account this year. Fortunately, we're here at the end of the fiscal year, so we can scoot a few things into October if we need to. But the primary reason for this request is we actually have a large abatement project coming in the next fiscal year that we're going to have to tackle, and it is the removal of a condemned structure. The City Council condemned an unsafe structure in Cedar Crest neighborhood. And the reason that's just now coming before you for a budget request, we thought we were going to be able to get the property owner to take care of that issue. And we were led on for some time thinking that they were going to self-abate that issue. And we take condemnation very seriously. We don't want to in any way rush in to private property and demolish structures. We want that to be a last resort. Unfortunately, in this case, it appears that we're at our last resort. And so trying to, and working with the building department to come up with a reasonable figure that we think would cover the removal of that structure in a safe fashion, we arrived at the 20,000 mark. So that's the bulk of where those funds would be going. right. No questions. We'll move to the personnel. And this is certainly the largest area that we have for requested increases. We are requesting 2 new positions. First and foremost, we have the position of GIS manager. Now, the city maintains a wide array of data and information in our GIS system. So every time that we have a new subdivision, a new commercial development, a new building, what have you, those layers, that information needs to be included in the GIS system and managed and maintained. At present, we have 1 person on staff outside of the public safety apparatus that works on and maintains our GIS system and all the data management that comes with that. That particular employee is very hardworking, and he does an excellent job keeping the GIS program afloat. But that is my synopsis of where our GIS program is. It's afloat. You know, it certainly is not being utilized to the highest degree to provide the residents, the citizens of Hoover, as well as other city departments with the kinds of with resources and analytics that it could. So if we are to, first of all, ensure going forward that that system is managed properly, the data is maintained in a most effective manner, and we want to increase the amount of productivity that we get out of our GIS tools, then we are in dire need of some additional hands on deck. This particular person would manage the GIS system, not only how it's maintained, but how it is further utilized to assist residents as well as other city departments. The other position request is that of zoning administrator. So there are a lot of functions within the city, namely in the development side, where zoning touches a lot of different things. So every permit that we issue for new construction, whether it's a new commercial building, subdivision, a house, pool, fence, you name it, zoning plays a part of that, because as you guys know, zoning informs the spatial development of each individual property, setbacks, height, bulk of buildings, you name it. Also, with every business license that we issue in the city, you are dealing with a new use in the community, and that new use is governed by the zoning ordinance. Zoning ordinance is there to ensure the proper placement of uses across the city, to ensure that you do not get a use that is noxious to a certain locale. As of right now, we have those functions that are largely being carried out by business licensing and also the building department's plans examiners. Now, of course, the planning and zoning department is a resource should anybody have questions, but what we're finding is the questions, the volume is definitely on the uptick. We have excellent folks in our business license apparatus as well as the building department, our plans examiners, and they try their level best to give the best possible service and to ensure that all of the regulations that the city has adopted are enforced properly. Where this particular individual would come in is that they would have expertise in the zoning area and be able to put eyes on all of those different permit types that I mentioned. They would be able to put eyes on all of the business license applications that come in and reduce the number of instances where we have uses popping up in places they don't belong out of conformity with the zoning ordinance. And we have buildings and structures that meet all of the setback requirements and the other requirements of the zoning ordinance. Yeah, that's a burden that has been taken on by the plans examiners and the licensing folks. It has been that way all the way to date. And that's becoming a more arduous task for that personnel. So cities of similar size do have typically a person dedicated to that function. So we're making that request to ensure that we have expertise reviewing the zoning for all manner of different applications that zoning plays a part in. Any questions that I can entertain on the personnel portion? All right. Next up, we have vehicle requests. We do have 2 units that we're requesting. One is a replacement unit, and the other is an additional unit for one of our staff members, the landscape architect, that goes out, does inspections all across the city nearly every day. And right now they are using a personal vehicle and being reimbursed. So that covers the vehicle side. If there are any questions related to that.
Quick question on that.
Yes.
So you've got 2 trucks that are requested there as replacements, is that right? One of those is listed on Mr. Moore's list as low priority and one is medium priority. Do you know the reasoning for the prioritization on those?
I have not seen the prioritization from Fleet.
Mileage, okay.
In the year, the age of the vehicle.
Mileage and the age of the vehicle, okay. Do you happen to know how many miles those trucks have on?
Right off the top of my head, I do not.
Okay. All right, thank you.
115 and 86.
Okay, 115 and 86.
All right, thank you.
All right. Let's see, the last part, we have the capital and one-time requests. First item that I have on the list is an enhanced streetscape project for Lorna Ridge and the frontage of Aldridge Gardens. I know that this has been something discussed a number of years about needing to improve or wanting to improve Lorna Road and make it more not only aesthetically pleasing, but more pleasing for those residents and visitors that enjoy that stretch of roadway. This is meant to piggyback on a project that was funded by the Jefferson County Community Service Fund, where they did some landscape enhancements at Aldridge Gardens. This would take that stretch of roadway and provide for some landscape enhancements there as well. There should be an illustration, a plan for that included in your packet, as well as the fee schedule that we had, or rather the cost schedule. The next item that we have is really important, and it is an extension of the River Chase trailhead as part of the Cahaba River Greenway network. This is a 2/3 of a mile stretch of new trail that would extend off the existing half-mile loop at the River Chase trailhead. I know that I thoroughly enjoy, as well as all of those out with me, that particular loop. And it's a great asset, great resource. But the city actually owns considerable acreage adjacent to that tract of land around the backside of Arbor Hills. So there's actually 2/3 of a mile of frontage on the Cahaba that is currently not used. And so this project would include new trail, and there are 2 locations we identified where we would have to bridge smaller tributaries. That's the bulk of the cost that's associated with bridging those 2. But an additional 2/3 of a mile of trail, 1.5 miles of trail experience. All right, and then finally, we have a request for matching funds for an Apple study of trails in the River Chase area, the River Chase Health and Wellness District. The requested funds are total $12,000. We would seek out $48,000 in matching funds through the Regional Planning Commission to study the feasibility of a segment of the Cahaba River Greenway Trail through the Office Park sector of River Chase. I will note that both of those projects related to trails do support implementation of the comprehensive plan as well as the Park and Recreation Master Plan we adopted. Any questions?
Any questions from Ms. Martin? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next up, risk management.
Good evening. Excuse me. Thank you for this opportunity to present the budget request for risk management for next year. In your summary sheet, you will see that I have 3 line items in my operating budget. The first is my Fund 120 department budget request. And for that, I am requesting an additional $380, which is for an increase in notary bond fees that I expect to increase from $60 to $100 in January. For my operating fund for workers' comp and property and casualty, those are both internal service funds. And those funds we use to manage our self-administered workers' comp and property and casualty claims, as well as insurance expenses. And as you can imagine, trying to determine how many accidents or how many injuries we're going to have next year can be very difficult. So what I have done is taken a 5-year average and looked at each of those funds. For workers' comp, I am not requesting any additional funds. I think we should be fine. But for property and casualty, specifically, I am asking for an increase of $37,500, which I believe would be needed for insurance premium expense. $35,000 to procure directors and officers insurance for our incorporated boards, and an additional $50,000, which I think may be needed for our property and damage claims. So overall, that is a total of $122,500. For the next item, well, any questions about that? Thank you. For the next item, for personnel request, you will see that I am requesting a new position for risk management, a safety coordinator position. You know, in risk management, we're a small team of 3, but we have big ideas and lofty goals. And so what I would like to do is increase safety awareness throughout the city. Our larger departments do have training divisions, but a lot of our smaller departments do not. So what I envision is this person would help us increase safety awareness across the city. It would be one person dedicated solely to that idea. And you will see in your handout, there's a document that reflects 4 key elements of a safety program. Those would be the items that I would envision this person focusing their attention on. And it's things like additional oh, do you see this document? Okay. And so you will see it will help us develop policies and procedures. Take a look at that, more additional safety training, accident investigation, and some hazard inspections. You know, our employees do a great job for the number of miles that they drive every day and the work that they do. So this would just be to enhance them. This person would work with departments to help decide areas that they may have some need with, and they would be a recommending person. And I also expect this person to be a seasoned safety professional with maybe some OSHA experience coming in and helping us true up everything. Any questions about that position? The next item I have is for technology request. Currently, our risk management software that we use every day, we've had since 2003. It is a good program, but we learned this year that they have filed Chapter 11. So we are taking a look at some alternative software programs that might be beneficial and help us. I've got a budget of $50,000. We're still in the exploratory phase, but that's an educated guess of what I think it might be to move toward new software. And our current contract does expire in May of next year. And finally, under capital and one-time request, I am asking for an additional $4,620. This is to renew the public official bond that protects each of you as members of the E911 Communications District. That actually expires in November this year. And so I am asking for the funds to renew that bond.
Any questions on these items?
Not just more so a comment, well, it is a question. Do we currently have a safety program, just so I'll know?
I think some departments have that. We don't have a
But not
safety
globally,
department.
Not globally, okay.
That's
all right.
right. We do not have a
I
safety
would
department.
say, council, generally, first-time organizations that start a program and have a safety coordinator, they do have a reduction in costs as it relates to injuries in the workplace and things of that nature, insurance premiums. I would say, just for the record, as one person, so that's going to be a large undertaking, but you have to start somewhere. That's a comment I wanted to make.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right,
I
thank you.
would just add on that, that position is one of those gap positions that I think have been identified that I'm just kind of surprised we don't have. So, because they're getting to those type programs when they can, much like the GIS was described. So some of these are gap positions.
Debbie, I do have a question for you. Over the past several years, I think both workers' comp and the property and casualty funds, the city designates X amount of dollars to fund both of those internal service funds, and I think both of those have been set to be $1 million each for a long time.
What, my budget request is actually a little bit more than that?
Yes. So my question, and normally what happens then is the city, at the end of the year, has to cure those deficit balances in the internal service funds. So would you have a recommendation for how much both workers' comp and property and casualty should be funded by the city on the front end?
Well, those are the amounts that I
You
have
would use
here.
those? Okay.
And so they should be on your spreadsheet.
Yep.
I took a look at those. I think that's sufficient. I did ask for $122,000 more for property and casualty. So like currently under workers' comp, I think this year we're going to be fine.
Okay.
This fiscal year, it looks like. Property and casualty, we'll have to wait and see how that shakes out.
It's hard to forecast.
It is very hard to forecast. And I did go back and do a 5-year average. And I talked to my insurance broker about insurance premiums. So I can talk to you later about how I derived that number, but I did do the best that I can to try to guesstimate that.
I'm sure, I think that would be something that we'd like to include in our transfers that were as part of the mayor's budget.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we move on to the mayor? All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening. Starting with the mayor's budget, we are not asking for any additional funds in operating. We've only just reallocated some funds within the operating, but the bottom number is still the same. Do you want me to go over just tourism? Okay. In the
Can I-
tourism budget, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Chairman, can I just make one comment? I do want to say, I know the analysis was ran on a salary analysis was ran, we haven't presented it yet, but I would recommend that the mayor's expenditure piece be upgraded. Right now, many mayors have vehicles, they have certain, phones, things of that nature. And there's only a certain small dollar amount for the mayor's expenditure piece. It's supposed to cover all of his gas, all of his phone use, and stipend. And then I think at a certain point, we got to really look at upgrading that piece of it. So that will be my recommendation. I need to say it right now? Okay, I just want to make sure.
I think it'll be something as
make that
we
a-
talk, we might want to add as a council to the budget. So after we get it next Monday night, then we can do our usual thing with spreadsheet.
And send all the notes to you?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
all
what
right,
we'll do.
okay, I just want to make that for record.
Okay.
Okay, next is the tourism budget. And Ken Grimes touched on this earlier, I believe. The tourism budget will be managed by the marketing coordinator, which is currently vacant. Human Resources is currently taking applications for this position, and it closes on Friday, so hopefully it won't be too long before that's filled. Again, we're not asking for any increases in the tourism budget. Do y'all have any questions?
I do. I know that 3 years ago, the mayor's office had created Office of Tourism Hospitality. Tinette Lynch ran that. And I know we had put money in the budget year after year after year with the goal of having a board of directors, creating a website, advertising and promoting Hoover. I'd like to understand why scale down from tourism director to marketing director, and what's the difference and what they do.
Okay.
Well, I'll take a stab at it. I mean, we have the Birmingham Jefferson CVB that is promoting the region. And when they're promoting things here, we're included in a lot of that. A lot of the big events, I've noticed that we do have agreements where hotels are used by, for example, sporting teams. So in the Birmingham Bowl, one of the teams stays in our city, the other, I think, stays in Birmingham, and other events like that. I think in a nutshell, you had basically $130,000 of money that was in that budget for tourism promotions. Some of those local activities, we realized along the process in this last year that we can't fund them based on what they do and how they're set up. So some of that money that had been spent prior to, I can't speak to what the decision-making was, but it's not allowed by basically the way the organizations are incorporated and/or their purposes, or scholarships, et cetera. So there's some of those things, I think you're familiar with that. So for this standpoint, from a standpoint of the marketing, you're really trying to attract people in mainly for events, and we always will promote our city through events, through our own media as well as website, et cetera. But I think at the end of the day, there's not a lot of specific plans that I have for how we're going to go out and promote tourism separate than marketing the city. I want the person to come in and tell us how to maximize, as you've shown me a lot, using digital media quite a bit, which is a lot less expensive. So we have a lot of companies in town that are still doing a lot of print. There are maps and things like that, and that's a little bit dated because unless you can put the map in their hand and use that, that's not useful. So brochures are the way of the past and phones are the way of today, and I know that we're all using that. So trying to get the right staff person that can guide this, that would still give us money as we talk about marketing and or tourism. So I'm open for what y'all think when it comes to really tourism is overnight stays. Trying to put people, the heads in beds and trying to maximize what that will be. Most of that seems to be evolved here around events. I don't have a specific answer because I'm trying to be unbiased as we do the interviews and bring the right person in to kind of give us the guidance. I have my own thoughts, but that's not necessarily where, I'm trying to spend money. We haven't spent money out of this since I've been here because we're trying to regroup with some things.
Thanks for that. I appreciate that.
And one last thing is the chamber presented last week, and we talked about we're waiting on that. Nan told me today. So they're doing a lot of marketing pieces and a whole campaign that's part of what we're funding with Elevate Hoover. So I promised y'all that as soon as I got that from the chamber that I would share that information as well. And she saw us at the groundbreaking this morning and said she'd be sending that. Still have not received it. So, but that's an example of you have an outside entity that's doing a lot of promotions, whether viewed as tourism or whether it's come by a house and live here, et cetera. It's all part of the marketing umbrella.
Well, I appreciate that. One of the things I like to see done going forward with council involvement in all this is like one of the things that was done like 6 years ago when the administration took the $2 bed fee. That's what, 6 years ago, and it averages like $1 million a year. So it's like $6 million ago. And I know the promise was made that some of that money would be reached back to hoteliers, since it's coming from them, that $2 bed fee. And I like to see something like that as well, because I think that's one mechanism that you can use to fund that department, from advertising to your director or whoever. But to me, I would like to see more of a succinct, detailed plan of how we're going to market the city. And when I mean market, and I'm old school, I guess, when I hear marketing, I think of some kid who's a social influencer doing the selfies. I want more than that. I'm sure we all do. So if we can be more involved in that, I would love to see that happen.
I expect when we get the marketing position filled and they get their feet on the ground that we'll have a plan presented, and you all will be definitely a part of what we're trying to say and expose the outside community to our city. So I definitely will commit to that, yes.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, Mayor.
No, that's good, thank you. So you have, before you should have a binder. And, we've been working very hard towards building a performing arts center. We made a couple of runs at it. We got so close that we actually went and borrowed money to finish the interior of a building. That was kind of our plan. And it's become apparent to me that the thing that has prevented us more than anything from building a performing arts center is that we've not been in control of our own destiny. The two opportunities that we had have always been tied to something else, someone else, either a development of incentives, or at Patton Creek, the lease, we couldn't get that right. We were always kind of under somebody's thumb, so to speak. So in my opinion, it's time for us to step out on our own, identify a parcel of land, and go after our performing arts center that we all want to have. Now, the beauty of it is that we have already done all the preliminary work, and we spent, a considerable amount of money with live design, and we've had, as you'll see in your report here, your study, we've got a study there, very in-depth study about what the size needs to be, what types of shows we could attract, the audiences that we could attract, down to even the size of it and the cost of it. We've got all of that information. We've had even had town hall meetings where our citizens were able to come in and tell us what they had on their mind and the things that were important to them. So working with Live Design, I've asked them to develop a contract, and for us to engage a contract with them to design our Performing Arts Center. That's about a $3 million fee that they would charge. That would be all-inclusive for start to finish. That would address a $40 million budget for a Performing Arts Center, all-inclusive. That would include the land, the development of the land, the building, all the fees, everything that goes along with it. That fee is included in their fee. Now, the thing about designing a performing arts center, if we started today, it'd be probably 12 to 15 months before they even have something in front of us. So I would love for us to engage them and let's start that process. And running parallel to that process, also develop an RFP. There are a number of sites that we've identified, but I've also had a number of individuals that have brought sites to us that they would like to entertain building the Performing Arts Center there as well. So my idea is for us to develop this RFP and with the intention of having these folks bring to us a parcel of land that would include what it costs to have it pad ready. Basically, let's go out and build it right now. What's that going to cost? Where is it? And it will have some specifics in that RFP that will be important to us. Location, obviously, the parking, making sure that it can accommodate parking, making sure that it is in an area that we've all kind of talked about that's walkable and you can get to restaurants, those types of things that are really important to us. So running concurrent with the design and drawing, and the architectural renderings, and just putting that whole package together, that would run concurrently. So we went out and borrowed $17 million, and so this would not affect our budget that we're trying to fund all of these other things that we're talking about. We could draw that directly out of the $17 million. And so it's interesting that we've got everything really in place. We just need the land, the design, and the will to pay for it and operate it. So this is, I believe this is our next step. And there should be a good bit of information in there to help you decide on that. That's it. Any questions?
All right, thank you. Good. Police is up next, but I don't see the chief. Is he out in the hallway?
Sure. Sure. Be sure we send the mic over to. Send the mic over to you guys whenever it's time for y'all to talk. Everybody ready? Okay. Council President Leiter, members of the City Council, I want to say we appreciate the opportunity to discuss our fiscal year 25 budget request with you this evening. Before I start, I've been asked by several department heads and other employees to discuss a potential COLA for fiscal year 25. We know that we have to be competitive with surrounding cities in the area. We know our employees work very, very hard. We want the city of Hoover to be the choice for individuals to work. We've looked at several of the neighboring cities and know what type of COLA they're getting. For instance, Shelby County is getting 4%, Vestavia 3%, Alabaster 3%. Pelham will be getting 2 on October 1st, 3 on January 1st, for a total of 5. Mountain Brook 3, Homewood 4. A lot of this today reminds me of the NIL. Young people today coming to work, what do they want to know? How much money am I going to make? We know prices are higher. We all go to the grocery store. I hope that we can all agree that maybe a sweet spot would be about 3%. I think everybody would be excited about that, and we hope that we can get support from the council. Last year, we asked the council to approve some new technology items, and you did. The technology enhanced our capabilities to do what we do on a daily basis, and some will eventually become game changers for us. This year, we're asking for personnel. We're asking for additional 5 police officers. Technology certainly helps us find the bad guys, but technology does not put the handcuffs on them. People do. If you'll look at number 1, right after number 1, the tab 1, you'll see that we're the 6th largest city, obviously, in the state of Alabama, Huntsville being 1. If you look at being the 6th largest city, we are ranked 21st out of 25 for police officers per 1,000. If you'll see at Homewood ranks 5th, Pelham 6th, Vestavia 8th, Alabaster 17, we're 21 with 2.04 officers per 1,000 residents. If we added 5 police officers, we'll go from 21st to number 19 at a 2.1. The average among the 25 largest cities is 2.58. I'd like to discuss a little bit about our crime statistics from last year. 2023 was a historic year for us. We saw a 16-year low in several categories, key categories. Robberies, the lowest number of robberies we've had in 16 years. City our size, 9 robberies in 12 months. Phenomenal. In the previous 16 years, we averaged 42 robberies per year. So they were down, for the average, 78.5%. Burglaries, lowest number, 17 years. 99 burglaries in the city last year. Even lower than the 114 we had during the pandemic year of 2020. We averaged 291 burglaries per year from 2007 to 22. So our burglaries compared to the 16-year average, down 66%. Car break-ins, or UBEVs as we call them, down, historic low, 17 years. We had 317, average is 409, 16-year average down 22.5%. We did not have a non-traffic related homicide in 23 for the first time since 2011. We have averaged 2.7 homicides per year from 2007 to 2022. In the past 17 years, we've had 44 homicides. So far in 24, we're on pace to even break the numbers in burglaries and car break-ins that we had last year. We've also not recorded a traffic-related homicide this year. I really don't want to say this, but it's been 704 days since we've had one. Violent crimes and homicides in particular continue to occur in high numbers in several cities around the metro area. In 23, Birmingham recorded a 91-year high in the number of homicides. This city, and so far in 24, 15% ahead of last year. They're sitting at 109 as of this morning. In all of Jefferson County, it's been 140 homicides this year. Policing in our area has become more and more dangerous and challenging due to the escalated violence, the type of weapons and Glock switches that we are encountering ourselves by criminals. I'd also like to say, let's pray for the victims in Georgia. Today we had a 14-year-old kid that killed 4 classmates and shot another 9. And, something that unfortunately we see much too often. I would like for Chief McDuffie to take a couple of minutes and talk about some of the individuals since January 1st that we've encountered. Chief?
Thank you. As Chief said, we've seen a rapid increase in crime, violent crime in the surrounding agencies. And we all know that criminals don't limit their movements or activities to city limits or jurisdictional boundaries. Our officers are having frequent and recurring contact and interactions with the most dangerous and violent suspects in the metro area. I have a stack here of 9 media releases from AL.com and other media outlets of arrest and indictments for violent homicides in the surrounding jurisdictions from just the last 6 months. The suspects in all of these murders have had contact with our patrol officers and detectives on multiple occasions prior to committing these murders. In the interest of time, I'd like to read just a few of them to you, just the highlights. Some of these you'll immediately recognize as being recent high-profile murders in the metro area. First, from the Birmingham PD press release on March 19th of 2024, headline, "Arrest Made in the Byron McNeil Homicide Investigation." It goes on to say, BPD detectives obtained a capital murder warrant on the suspect for shooting the victim in the middle of the street on 2nd Avenue North. This suspect had been arrested 5 separate occasions by Hoover police officers prior to this murder for charges ranging from drugs, warrants, receiving stolen property, and burglary. Second, from AL.com, dated August 9th of this year, headline, "Drifter Arrested in Tuscaloosa AA Slaying, Indicted in 3 Additional Oklahoma Murders." It says, a drifter charged in the killing of a man at AA in Tuscaloosa on May the 14th of this year has now been indicted on 3 Oklahoma murders. The 50-year-old suspect was indicted on 8 felony crimes, including murder and robbery in the shooting deaths of 2 adult males and 1 adult female. This suspect is now charged in the murder of 4 individuals across 2 separate states. He was arrested by Hoover PD officers on May the 21st, walking along Highway 150 with outstanding warrants from the U.S. Marshal Service. Third, from the Birmingham Police Department press release, February the 28th of 24. Headline, 7 arrests made in the Mahogany Jackson homicide investigation. It details on February 25th, Mahogany Jackson texted her mother and told her she was being held hostage and for her to contact police. Police and family searched for her throughout the night. The next day, her body was found on the side of a deserted road with a gunshot wound to the back of the head. During the investigation, it was discovered 7 individuals had kidnapped, sexually assaulted, tortured, and ultimately murdered Miss Jackson. One of the suspects even recorded parts of the offense on a cell phone. One of the individuals that was charged with 2 counts of capital murder, kidnapping, and sodomy had been arrested 4 previous times by Hoover police officers on charges ranging from outstanding warrants, thefts, and drugs. AL.com, July 22nd of this year, Alabama pastor whose grandson charged in death of his wife and 4 children recounts moments after shootings. The details included this suspect is charged with 5 counts of capital murder in Bibb County for the execution killing of a 2-year-old, 2 6-year-olds, a 9-year-old, and his 24-year-old wife. 2 of the children killed belonged to the suspect, and the other 2 were also relatives. We've had a history of multiple traffic stops and citations with this suspect. From Mail.com on August the 2nd of 2024, 3 indicted in the death of Birmingham man who was abducted, tortured, stripped with his girlfriend before being killed. It details 3 people have been indicted in the death of a 43-year-old man who was stripped, bound, and tortured before he was fatally gunned down outside an East Birmingham home. After the victim was murdered in front of her, the victim's girlfriend was also stripped, beaten, and held against her will for roughly 12 hours before being rescued by police. The ringleader in this murder was charged with numerous violent crimes, including capital murder and kidnapping. The Hoover Police Department had arrested this individual a total of 9 times between 2013 and 2023. And finally, from AL.com, just yesterday, September 3rd of this year, a man charged with helping a Bessemer triple murder suspect burn evidence in tragic weekend. Details: just before midnight on Friday, August 30th, 3 individuals were shot to death at a Citgo service station in Bessemer. Hours later, an area-wide BOLO was sent out identifying 2 vehicles and possible suspects in this mass killing. Later that evening, less than 22 hours after the murders, one of the vehicles and a suspect was located in Hoover at a service station on Highway 150 by Hoover officers. The suspect arrested has so far been charged with hindering prosecution first degree for buying gasoline used to burn one of the vehicles involved in those incidents. Not only are we having frequent contact with the most violent in our area, we're having contact with them when they're armed with firearms that have been used in other crimes throughout the metro area and beyond. This year alone, we've recovered 17 guns that have been linked to violent crimes in many other jurisdictions. 11 of those 17 have been used in violent crimes in Birmingham, including 5 homicides. 1 has been used in a homicide in Bessemer. 1's been used in a homicide in Alabaster. 1's been used in a prior shooting in Hoover. 1's been used in a shooting in Hueytown. 1 in a shooting in Jefferson County, and 1's been used in a shooting in Savannah, Georgia. We're also recovering guns which have been modified with Glock switches to convert them to fully automatic weapons. I'll highlight just one instance. On May the 25th of this year, our officers responded to a call of multiple shots fired in the area of Cedarbrook Trail. Though responding officers did not locate any evidence that rounds had been actually fired, they did locate a vehicle that was occupied by 3 males who were in possession of 4 firearms, 2 of which had been converted to fully automatic with lock switches. The 4 firearms were loaded with a total of 55 9mm rounds, 49 40 caliber rounds, and 50 rifle rounds. One of the subjects from that car just 20 days later was himself the victim of a homicide in Birmingham, where over 50 shots were fired on a heavily traveled roadway. 2 additional persons were also struck by the gunfire in that incident. I'll conclude by saying I've been policing in the metro area between here and Birmingham for nearly 35 years, and it's always been a dangerous occupation. The surge in the last few years in the level of violence, the number of firearms being carried, and most importantly, the increased lethality of the firearms being carried has really increased the danger and threat to all our officers exponentially. The advancements in tools and technologies have certainly helped keep us safe and help keep us with the upper hand. But without having the boots on the ground to use those tools effectively and efficiently, the best computer or laptop computer or camera in the world is not much more than an expensive paperweight. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Well, as you can see, we fortunately are doing a great job of getting some of those people off the street. You know, the Glock switches brings back times when you hear about these Glock switches and you see a lot of times in the metro area where a shooting's taking place and there's like 50 rounds or 60 rounds, and that's the Glock switch. And as he said, on some of those, that vehicle that we stopped that had 2 of the guns were modified, they've got drums attached to these things that anywhere sometimes could be 25, 30, 50, 60 rounds. So when they start shooting a fully automatic, it doesn't take a long time, a few seconds to run off 30, 40 rounds. And it's happened in our city, but again, our people are working very, very hard and diligent to keep us safe. And again, we are still a safe city, thank goodness. As we said, we want to hire 5 additional. One of those additional will be a new lieutenant. Right now, our day shift lieutenant also acts as a traffic lieutenant and also special events. With everything that's taking place today, especially with our traffic, with our special events, we've got special events every week of the year, obviously. We want to just have a standalone lieutenant for day shift and have a standalone lieutenant for traffic, and that traffic will take the related duties also from the special events. 3 new police officers. We just need to increase that number. In my 5-year plan a few years ago, I said I'd like to be at 200. It gives us the opportunity when we have things that are taking place that we can put a 2-man car out. We can put guys occasionally that we still do. Occasionally, if we're having something take place, we'll put guys in unmarked cars at night. And it gives us just a better opportunity to do things. We unfortunately, people take vacations. We've got FMLA, just different things come up. So even though we've got 189 sworn police officers, it's seldom that we're 100% done. So again, having the 3 additional ones. The other officer I would like to do is to give up 2 part-time SROs for another full-time. If we get the additional full-time SRO, he would go to Shades Crest Elementary School, and that would put us full-timers in everywhere. Obviously, we've got three SROs in each of our high schools, and then 1 at every other school. So 5, again, some of our folks, even sitting with me, wanted us to come in and ask for more. I think if we can get 5 this year, we'll be back probably next year, but if we get 5 this year, we'll be well satisfied. If you know me, I've got a passion for the job that we do. In January, I'll start my 20th year as a police chief for Hoover. I've been able to assemble a team with the same passion that I have. We've all been in this business for a long time, and the only thing that I think is constant is change, and we have to adapt to it. I'm asking for upgrades for my assistant chief, 3 captains, and the executive officer that carry the ball for me to the men and women of the Hoover Police Department. I hope you've seen by the information I detailed earlier, we score a lot of touchdowns. I tell our staff daily, nobody does it like we do. And I don't settle for mediocrity. I demand excellence in everything that we do. Probably not the easiest guy to work with sometimes. Don't ask them, please. I appreciate the job that they do. These 5 officers have a heck of a lot of experience. The 5 guys that I'm talking about have 144 years of police experience. We can't afford for key members of our department to decide to leave or retire at the same time. I think we've seen in other city departments what happens when key people retire or take jobs elsewhere. I think that you've got in front of you, it's kind of a pay scale and pay grade. Shows Mountain Brook, Birmingham, Hoover, Vestavia, Jefferson County, Trussville, Homewood, and Shelby County, the salaries of captains with the incentives. All of the captains and assistant chief that work have college degrees, which gives you in Hoover $1,000. The most you can make in Hoover is $6,000, and the $6,000 would be to have a doctorate, which none of them have. Of the 5, 1 has a master's degree. So when it shows Hoover at 153, 347, it's really 148, 347 because they don't have all the incentives. If any of our guys, everybody but 1, including myself, we've all graduate of the FBI National Academy with an associate degree and then another 2 years for your bachelor's degree. It's 5, and then FBI Academy would be 15%. So you see Mountain Brook can make $165,000 a year, and our guys are down in the $148,000 range. And all I'm saying to you is these are the guys that do carry the ball for me every day. And again, I think you can look at our statistics to say we do a hell of a job, and I'm very proud of it. And I would like to see our folks compensated for the type of job that they do. I got a few more upgrades in here. My executive assistant, I'm asking for an upgrade for that supervisor position, or a title change to executive assistant. The position currently is a 10. I've asked it to go to it's currently a 9. I'd like it to go a 10. Ms. Callaway supervises 2 administrative assistants. She's got supervisory duties, yearly performance evals. The last 2 years working with us, she's grown in her position. She's contributed more, and her current title requires her specifically regarding project management. A specific example, she was instrumental with preparing myself when I was invited to Senator Tuberville's symposium in the nation's capital this past May. That visit and the relationship forward with the senators has yielded us hundreds of thousands of dollars so far in federal grants this year. Senator Britt just gave us a $350,000 grant for our body-worn cameras, which I'll discuss in a few more minutes. Police record supervisor, Shanna right now is 7. I'm requesting an 8. She supervises 4 record specialists who are pay grade 6. In addition to the duties, she has supervisory duties to include yearly performance evals, disciplinary actions, approved denied time off, yearly goals, and training a new record specialist. Administrative assistant senior, I'm requesting an upgrade for that. This currently is a pay grade 4. I'm requesting a 6. Ms. Keith has extensive background in administrative assistance, completely capable of necessary decisions. At a pay grade 4, if she was upgraded, she'd go from $20 an hour to $22 an hour. And if you'll see on, it's tab 7, on July 26, Human Resources posted a position for administrative assistant senior receptionist, city clerk part-time at a pay grade 6. Ms. Keith does all the responsibilities in this posting, including with special community relations. We're requesting her be moved to that pay grade 6 from her current step on grade 4 to be in line with the current posting. And that's all I've got at the present time. I'll give it now to Executive Officer Fountain, who will talk about our operational costs. Got it.
Good evening. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the operational costs for the police department. Our original allocations that came out on June 18th was the police department itself had $886,229. The detention center had $531,850. And that combination combined totals $1,418,079. So what we're looking at for the next fiscal year is we're looking at sending 6 officers to the police academy. And we have a great program that we're able to do that, and it's real cost effective compared to some academies that we send them to. So the cost for those 6 people will cost us $21,000. It's $18,000 travel, meals, and lodging, $3,000 in registration. Chief talked about the 5 new potential officers. Each one of those cost outfits $13,300, so we're asking for $66,500 for the equipment for those 5 new officers. Vigilant camera systems. We've been using vigilant camera systems for quite some time. We've had $74,000 that's carried over. The past year, we bought more cameras, and the new cameras additional need $88,000. All that went through council already. It was ratified. You guys approved it. But the continuing cost for that is an additional $88,000 in addition to the $74,000 we already got. We also just approved flock camera systems a couple months ago through council. That was $32,500. That will be due again next year. So we're moving all this stuff over to the operational portion of our budget so that we can continue the subscriptions to these programs. We're asking for $10,900 for pole cams and $6,030 for an LPR trailer refurbishment. It's an older trailer. We'd like to put it back in service. It's going to cost us $6,030. Services and subscriptions. So for the jail, we have medical staff that we pay a contract for. This year, that medical staff is increasing, that contract's increasing $8,890. Another software subscription that we have that we're asking for is $6,235. That is the program that, the subscription that our detective has, is the program that he uses to download computers. If we're doing an investigation, we're having to download somebody's computer, that's the program he's using for that. And then the cradle point for trailers is $3,767. And what that is, that's essentially a router for the LPR trailers that are out in the field, or the LPR systems in the field. And that is what connects the LPR cameras to the internet and to our MDTs. I'll be followed by Chief McDuffie for the Tahoes.
In terms of vehicle requests, we're requesting that 13 patrol Tahoes be replaced. These 13 Tahoes that are in service now, daily service, range in mileage from 150,000 to 200,000 miles currently. If the 5 new officer positions are approved, we would obviously need a Tahoe for them. We would also like to replace one of our warrant officers' Tahoes that is used daily to serve warrants. It currently has 171,320 miles on it. One admin Tahoe we're asking to be replaced that currently has 125,315 miles. Investigations, we'd like to replace 2 of those vehicles that are used daily. One currently has 221,824 miles on it. The other one has 194,170 miles on it. We'd like to get an F-250 to replace the current F-250 our special event sergeant drives. It is a heavily used vehicle that tows our equipment back and forth to special events as well as his daily transport for his other duties. It currently has 173,995 miles on it, 173,995. And we'd also like to replace 2 animal control F-150s. The vehicles would be replacing, one has 237,000 miles on it. The other one has in excess of 169,000 miles on it.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, back to the new hires, the 5 potential officers. We're asking for $20,000 for the MDTs, for their computers. And talking about facility upgrades. So the jail needs $536,400 in jail upgrades. That includes the motorized doors. They need to be replaced. They're aging. It's over 20 years old. Sally Port door operator is $3,400. We're asking for $49,000 to pad some of the jail cells. And ceiling improvements is $30,000. That's to replace some of the drop ceilings just to make sure that people can't go from one cell to the other uninvited. And then $42,000 for prison sprinkler head covers so that the inmates cannot pop off the sprinkler heads. So we're asking for the city to pick up the tab for $536,000. In turn, we need a jail camera upgrade. And right now there are 78 cameras in there that need to be replaced at $3,500 each. Those are old analog cameras. We're changing them over to digital, and we're proposing to pay for those out of our inmate funds. So the next proposal is a total of $463,885.31. That includes the servers, the cameras, and what they call the switches for those cameras. And that amount of money will be coming out of our inmate funds. So if the city will pick up the jail doors, we'll pick up the cameras. And then lastly, this upcoming fiscal year, we paid $49,000 additionally out of inmate funds for the drone. FY26, that will be a $49,000 bill for the city if we continue that program. So I'll be followed by Chief.
Thank you, Ken. I mentioned Senator Britt and the $350,000 grant that you gave us. If you look at tab 8, we've got the press release from her office, U.S. Senator Katie Britt secures funding for Hoover Police Department body-worn cameras. These cameras right now are on a 5-year contract. Contract is coming up here first of the year, and we have been the city's been putting money aside for those cameras for the past 4 years. Currently, we've got $350,000 in one account, $150,000 in another, and now we've been awarded $350,000, which is a total of roughly $750. Is that right? $850,000. The anticipated cost to put new cameras out there will be in the area of probably $700,000. So there'll be monies left over. And again, we really appreciate Senator Britt. Really, that's a phenomenal amount of money from her. Also been dealing with Senator Tuberville's staff and hoping to garnish some grants through him. I'm going to let XO Fountain just talk about the total operating budget here for just a second. We're down to 34 seconds. We're about completed, and we'll open it up for questions for you guys. Go ahead.
Okay, I mentioned the total amounts for the jail and for the police department originally, the $1,418,079. It appears that we're asking for $222,825 additional dollars, but really and truly, that's money that we've already ratified through you guys with the Fusus, camera system, the vigilant camera systems and stuff. So we've already been through the process to get it on the books. We're just moving it from the capital projects that I think that we purchased it originally over to an operating expense. So that's all we're trying to do. So really and truly, of that $222,825, the additional cost is roughly $18,435. That's for the Finder software, which is what we use for investigations. It's also for the QCHC healthcare for the jail and a couple other little expenses that you can see on the template. So we're really not asking for the $222,000. We've already been down that road, so.
And I want to say too that some of the comments that Chief McDuffie made and some of the arrests that we've made on individuals dates back to when you guys gave us that technology last year. And when I say game changers, some of that stuff's going to be a game changer. We're really starting to utilize that stuff. And again, very, very proud of what our people do every day, 24 hours a day, 365. There is no off time. We certainly appreciate the council's support. I know you guys have supported us in the public safety world for police and fire, 911 since all of y'all have been in office, and we certainly appreciate it. We're not trying to talk doom and gloom. We're doing things really good, and we just wanted to kind of show you the kind of individuals that we've got interstate systems, and obviously some of the bad actors are spending some time here. So again, I know our time's up. If you got any questions, we'd be glad to answer them. Otherwise, please give us what we want.
Any questions? Just a couple of statements in preparation for, so I won't take too much time. I know I'll be asking for. I do know that some past data I had, as with police and I'll focus on police right now, including fire and 911. 2019 and 2022 was an increase of 47 increase in resignation, 16 increase in retirement. A lot of it was due to the defund the police movement, also changes to pension. As it relates to fire, younger generation is not as engaged into being a firefighter. So I guess my goal is to help as much as I can in this role, because I don't want to be 2 years down the road and shoulda, coulda, woulda approach, and now we have several challenges. City of Huntsville had a drive. They put on a huge drive to get firefighters. And I know we're doing a great job now, but being mediocre, I'm not going to be mediocre on this diocese and not support fire, police, and 911. My question will be, and you can give it at a later time, the 0 to 2 year range of employees that can retire. That 0 to 2 range of employees in the fire, police, and 911 can retire. Because we're trying to recruit individuals here, but if there's a massive reduction due to their retirement piece of it, that's going to be problematic for us. So I just want to make that statement out. That's information I'd love to have. And Chief, I don't see investigators on here. I know at one point I was reading, also talking to you, that is one thing to be able to solve a crime. You have to have people to investigate, not just arrest. And without investigation, that's another problematic issue that can impact the courts and the whole 9 yards. So didn't know if it was an impact associated with your investigators as well, too.
Well, we right now we think the patrol side is where we need the
all right.
boots on the ground right now,
Yeah.
and our investigators do a heck of a job. I think you'll see it all the time on AL.com. Have a crime committed, we're getting warrants and we're putting people in jail.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right. Let's move on to 911.
Okay, thank you very much.
evening, members of City Council. Hope you've had a great day today. Appreciate the opportunity to present the 2025 budget for the 911 department. But before we get into each line item, I know we have limited time. I'd like to just talk a moment about our department. Hoover 911 is a 34-member department and a vital link in the public safety chain to the public and a lifeline to our responders, police and fire departments. The department holds a Class 1 ISO communications rating, and we've begun the process, as you know, I've alluded to various times. We've entered officially the accreditation, begun that process to achieve accreditation. Currently, no centers in the state of Alabama are CALIA accredited, so once we get that done, we're excited about the prospects of being the first one to achieve that. A lot of what's included in this year's budget are comprehensive items necessary and tools to achieving that goal and enable us to maintain Governor Ivey's signed state-mandated 911 standards for telecommunicators last year in state of Alabama. So we want the best trained, obviously, telecommunicators, because a lot of what both chiefs have talked about, it starts in the 911 center. So we want the best trained personnel to support our responders and the public. This evening I have Michael Knight, Communications Manager, and Michael Cornwell, Communications Technician, and they worked a great deal on this budget, put in a lot of hours, and I'm very appreciative to them, but they'll be speaking about certain line items along the process. So let's start with operating. We requested an increase of $251,561. The first item is an increase on our tower rental fees for 4 radio towers located throughout the city, and we've added 5 to 8% over last year's amount just to account for the increase. Michael, you want to begin continuing the operating request?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. One of the things that CLIA accreditation is going to require is a public-facing website from our department that will allow the public to comment on and provide suggestions, feedback to our department. So with that, the first item is the website operating cost with the actual startup costs on page 3 of our document, our requested budget. This is going to allow us to enhance transparency and trust between the citizens of the city, as well as within the departments, the other agencies that we serve, and it's going to help improve communications overall during not just crises, but just in general communications with the public. The operating cost side of this would be $900, and that $900 is approximately, if I recall correctly, that's going to be over the first year. The next thing is the APCO Illumination subscription. What this is it's continuing education for our telecommunicators. Part of CALIA and APCO, which we are heavily involved in, is we require a certain amount of continuing educations per year, which is a total of 24 continuing education hours per year. APCO Illumination subscription will provide them 12 of those continuing education hours, and that is for a 12-month subscription. That's going to provide them with the most up-to-date best practices, and it's going to align with CLIA's accreditation for standards that allow us to be more accurate in handling emergencies. The next thing that we're requesting is the Public Safety Telecommunicator Week Fund. What this is we're hoping to promote public interactions by engaging at Hoover events. This is going to be to help promote a professional environment, which of course CALIA and everybody requires. The focus is going to be on recognizing telecommunicators, raising awareness of their critical roles, fostering public support, and confidence in the department. With this, it's when we're going to be we're going to get brochures and various materials to help educate the public and to hopefully draw and retain new employees. The Continuing Education and CALIA Compliance Fund, this is going to allow us to bring in additional training for our department so we can stay ahead of industry trends and get best practices and outside perspective on what we need to do in the 911 industry to make us where we are competitive in being able to stay ahead of the game. Next item is talking about the continuing education, I'm sorry, it's talking about the CALIA accreditation fee. With us committing to CALIA, that is the annual fee that we will have to commit to. Next item is the travel and training expenses. This is for Michael Cornwell to be able to go to the APCO National Conference. During the conference is what's called the MTUG, which is a Motorola user group training, and this allows him to stay abreast of what's going on in the radio field, as well as to stay on top of training that he needs for his role. The CALIA conference, that is something that's going to be required annually for the accreditation manager as part of CALIA. That is one of the standards that they do require whoever's in charge of the accreditation to go to a conference every year to stay abreast of new changes that are coming down the pipeline through the accreditation process. The next item I want to talk about is called Prepared Assist Unlimited. This is a service we can opt into that's going to help enhance our emergency management capabilities, and it's going to enhance our preparedness. This is going to allow us to provide real-time communication, including transcripts, videos, pictures, to the field units and be able to dispatch them quicker. It's also going to help them form more informed responses and get a better picture and be safer as they're responding to emergencies. They'll be able to better prepare themselves mentally as they're getting to the scene.
Absolutely. Open a link, send a link to the caller, and we can open a video session if needed. Of course, we would have policy governing that, utilization of it. Go ahead.
Yes.
Yes. Sorry, I
No,
wanted
but you're
to make
next.
them aware of that. Okay. All right, Fuchsia Software, excuse me, that was approved last budget year. We sharing half of the cost with the police department of $75,000. Personnel request, requested an assistant E911 director. I requested it last year as well. But this is to provide continued growth to the department's organizational structure, which we've been working on since we became our own separate department. It's a process. But continued growth for that, and assist the 911 director in operations and management, acting director in the absence of the director, and allow for succession planning. New vehicle requests, we have 2 requests to replace 2 existing vehicles, one assigned to the director, the other communications technicians due to mileage and wear and tear. No technology or building facility request, no new. Now we're going to move on to capital and one-time items. And keep in mind, we've requested $1,211,756.46, but almost half of which is for the replacement of public safety portable radios assigned to police and fire departments. So that's something we've got to do, but that's why that number became quite large. Michael Cornwell is going to speak further about that item, but let's see where we are. Hang on just a minute. Let's see. Console replacement, yeah. You want to go ahead and pick that up, Mike?
You want that, or you want me to get it? Console furniture?
No, about the Motorola console replacement.
Oh, okay.
Position 13, yeah.
We are looking to, I believe, Linda, correct me if I'm wrong, we funded part of this in the past year, and we're looking for that second half of that. That's to add the 13th position to our training room so that we're able to have the position to do that.
Right.
Extra
Cost at
position
that
to do
time
training.
last year, the quote we got was $75,000.
Correct.
And we funded half of that, $37,750. But as you know, these dollars now, I'm surmising that will not be adequate, but we're requesting that again. Let's see, the next item is the APCO Fire and Law Enforcement Communications courses. You want to speak to that? Sorry, we kind of went out of order. Sorry about that, guys.
All right, so the APCO Fire and Law Enforcement Communications, these are online courses that are going to help streamline the training for our new telecommunicators as well as our existing telecommunicators. It's going to help set the standards and guidelines by national standard or best practices for those 2 disciplines in dispatch.
Now out the radios. Michael, explain that to them.
All right, as Linda mentioned, a very large portion of our request this year is to replace the portable radio fleet for the police and fire department. We learned last year, unfortunately, that the manufacturer that supplies those for us has discontinued those radios and has obsoleted them to the extent we have tried to send some for repair, and they sent them back to us and said, we do not support this equipment any longer. Now, we've maintained the radios in a pretty good shape, and we don't have a whole lot of them dying off, but at some point that's going to come back to get us. So what we're proposing is to replace about 25% of that fleet a year. Moving forward, what we bring back in will support the remaining radios out there in the field. Just figure that that's a responsible way to manage that fleet. The second thing that I've got here is the carpet in the dispatch center. That's about, if I'm not mistaken, that's about 17 to 20 years old. It's pretty old carpet. It's well worn. For a while, we did have spare tiles that we were able to replace. Those are exhausted now, so we are looking to get a new floor put in there. Floor covering, excuse me. And I believe my last item is DC rectifiers. Another thing that has come and gotten us with obsolescence is the DC power system that powers our radio system. We elected to go that way because the DC system gives us runtime when power goes out. We also have generators, so it just adds an extra level of safety. The DC power systems, though, are now obsolete as well, but I have found a source that will allow us to purchase the critical parts. If we were to replace the whole thing, it would be about $50,000 per site times 5 sites. For $40,000, we can get a number of replacement parts that will keep that system rolling for about another 5 to 10 years.
All right, I know we're out of time here. Let's finish this up. Michael, you want to give a summary of these APCO Telecom right quick, and then we'll wrap it up with a backup radio system. Sorry.
All right, so APCO and Telecom, this is this software that's going to allow our telecommunicators to provide better scripted responses to citizens and gather the information quickly, enhance the response time for our emergency units to our callers. City's going to benefit from efficient emergency management, while public's going to experience those faster, more reliable emergency responses through this program.
Okay, and the last item, $37,000 for backup radio system. Mike, you know.
Correct, okay. So that last item is for a very simple radio system. Should we experience a significant emergency, a tornado rolls through the city, takes out multiple towers, impairs our primary communication system, that gives us a little backup that we could actually run out, throw out up on a tower, and get the fire department and the police department communicating again in approximately 2 hours.
Nothing fancy, just keep us operational.
Very
so
simple,
we can
correct.
Do better or call in additional resources. Have any questions? Be happy to answer.
All right, no questions. Let's move on to court.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to present my budget for court referral. I'm going to go on the budget summary sheet, but I believe you do have in your packet that I have provided for you a detailed summary of my budget. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to go quickly just kind of through this summary sheet, and then kind of concentrate on one item, if you don't mind. So if you go through this budget summary sheet, and you skip the first one that talks about the summary of a new request and go down to the operating budget, if you'll notice that on my fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25, it's exactly the same. I have not increased it at all. So basically, my operating budget stays the same. So you'll see that I have a lot of wants, but I'm just putting in exactly just what I need in my budget for fiscal year 25. So let's go down to the personnel request. All I'm asking is for 2 upgrades. One upgrade is for the Brent Parrott, who is my court. Basically, he runs the court security. I'm asking for a court security operations specialist. He is a 9. I'm asking for a 10. The laws have changed to where he works very closely with law enforcement. He is the liaison between the court and law enforcement. And right now, to where now the judge is the one that basically he has to do all the initial appearance hearings. So he has worked for the police department for many years. So he knows all the techniques, he works with the officers, and so he coordinates all that with the jail 24/7 at night, on the weekends, everything, to where he has to do bond hearings, all this, he has to get in touch with the detention officer, the judge, the inmate, all this to coordinate all that. He also does same things with bond hearings. He does the search warrants, coordinates with the judge, and also with investigators. So he does that also. So he's definitely 24/7 all. So that's why I'm asking for an upgrade on him. Another upgrade is administrative assistant. This is Maylene. She used to be a part-time. She was raised up the year before, and now she is a full-time position. She's a paralegal. She works with court referral now, and she does all the administrative work for court referral. She's just wonderful. She does a great job. She was a low grade 4. I'm asking her to be a 6, which basically that'll put her administrative assistant senior. So looking at both of those with the benefits and all that, that's right at $12,999. That's how much both of those with all the upgrade and the benefit. So let's go down to new vehicle requests that Dustin Moore talked about. I'm a department head. I have never had my own vehicle. So I just want to make sure that's clarified. I've never been able to have a take-home vehicle. The vehicle that we do have is a court vehicle. It's used for the whole court. I have 3 jurisdictions. My court's in Shelby County. I have Jefferson, Bessemer, and then I have Bessemer. I have Jefferson. So that's for appeals. We got subpoenas, we got summons, so that vehicle is used a lot. So that's really for a replacement vehicle. So I have that stipend. That's what I have. So I just wanted to clarify that I really do not have a take-home vehicle. So, any questions so far? No? Okay. So as far as new technology on the next page, and I'm sure Jason Cope will talk about that, that basically is just things that I've got to have that have not been working. I've got to be able to make sure that the public's got to know that as far as all our fines, court costs, and everything is displayed, it has not been working properly. So these are some of the things I've got to have done for the court. And I'm sure Jason, he'll be able to talk about that, but that's $2,100. Now, this is what I really want to talk about. The next one is the building facility requests. When you skip that first one, then you go down to the $26,000. That line item there is the glass. That's the glass that is in our front window. That's the bulletproof glass. And that has been there since the beginning of 2004. And it's got stretch marks on it. People have beat on it coming in, so it needs to be all replaced. And that's a $26,000 for that. The other one is my court referral project. Now, in your packet, if you can turn into your packet, there is a timeline of 8 years. When it comes down to money, there's a lot of history behind money. 8 years of history is behind this court referral project. And this is the project that I've been working on, council, for 8 years. And the council has been very obliging to fund me every year that I've come to you on getting the court referral project. But nothing has been done for 8 years. And we're still in a working environment and an increase in employees that is a terrible working environment. And the reason why is because I have no place to move them, because of what we got, the Historical Society, that we had dedicated, told in 2016 that we could move into. And in that renovation request history that I have provided for you, it explains all of this. And nothing's been done. So we're at the point now to where it was, proposed that we had 558,746, and now I'm requesting 278,686 for the renovation because inflation. And I'm just hoping that might. But still, where do we go? I don't know. I mean, it's awful over there. We have leaks all the time. We're dealing with people, and we're public safety. You've got to understand, we are part of public safety. And the chief did a fabulous presentation, but we deal with misdemeanors, and we get them. So when we get them, when we get these people, and we've got a court referral unit that is, we are looked up in such high standards. We have 281 municipal courts in the state of Alabama. And we're the only court that has a drug lab that has 11 units that we can test. Now, of course, we only test, because we're misdemeanor, marijuana, and alcohol. Huntsville has a lab, but they only test 6. Bessemer can only do dip test. Birmingham can only do dip test. And we're recognized through the state of being one of the models of the whole state of Alabama. And we do far more when we take a defendant and we turn them into a client. And these court referral officers have to touch that person every day, contact that person every day, and bring them in. They've got 3 offices over there and they're dealing with medical issues that are confidential, and we have complaints coming in that they can hear the other person over on the other side talk about their medical issues. And we can't find any place to put them. Now, I met the lady over there, the Historical Society, and she is so nice, the president. And so funny, I went over there to see them, and she says, and it's a storage area. They can't, because they're in a locked area. You have to use a fob to go through there, so nobody can see them. And she's so nice, and they've got wonderful things. They got beautiful things. And she says, oh my gosh, you're the one that wants to use this space. And I said, I sure am. She says, well, I want to get out of here as much as you want to get in. And she was extremely nice. It's a travesty because they have wonderful things to show Hoover. She loves Hoover as much as I do. But this is, she's got a passion for what she does, and I got a passion for what they do over there. And if you ever walked over there to see what they have to live in every day, these court referral officers, and deal with people that have substance abuse, alcohol abuse, you would understand. There's got to be something done to get them out for what they're in, they can expand out. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate everything that you do for this. But this is not Hoover's way. Hoover's the best. Hoover always displayed the best. And it just seems that when you fund something like this, that you should do more. Does anybody have any questions?
I'd like to piggyback on what Ms. Fuqua said. I've been down there, and I had no idea it'd been like 8 years. And you have all this great historic stuff for Hoover, locked in a box. No one sees it. It's a waste. It's just a waste. And so if there's a way the council can help expedite this and also find a way where to put Historical Society, it'd be better for Hoover and it'd be better for the court.
I appreciate that. And I do. I appreciate everything you've done. I do. But like I said, we are public safety. And we put people in there, but we put them better out. They deserve more. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Fuqua, just a clarification. So prior budget years, if I'm reading this correctly, we have budgeted $558,000 for the project.
Right.
So help me understand how nothing's been done.
Nothing's been done.
Construction-wise, but money's there, right?
Money's
$558,000 has been allocated, but you're asking for $278,000 to start the project based on anticipated cost increase.
right. We're asking that more if we can.
So we have budgeted $500,000.
Well, we have budget that, yes.
Okay.
But if by chance the city of Hoover can place the Historical Society, because if you look at this timeline where they said, okay, we might be able to move them here, we might be able to move them there, or these different places, but say they come back and say, okay, we're gonna move them over here, because they're gonna have to be in a facility because they have amazing historical information in that place. So they have to be in a climate-controlled area. So if the city moved them someplace, then we could start the project, but we can't do it at $550, $1,000. So
So the
we're
two
gonna
hurdle-
have to have more to be able to do that. That's why I'm asking for more.
So I'm with you. So the two hurdles are the 278,000 anticipated additional funds and relocation of
Right,
historical.
right, to be able to do it. And that's why I asked, the engineers, what do they think? They said, well, you're gonna have to go up 50% to be able to do that. Because just if you look at the prior costs were a lot less. If we could have moved them back then, look how much money now is gonna cost to do this.
You hear your mic? Okay, it's still on. And just more of a comment. And I'll just ask the mayor, I guess we're gonna have to find a place for Historical Society to go, because even if it's put in the budget, if we don't have a path forward when construction can start, then we'll be here next year.
I'm sorry, what now?
We'll be here next year again if we don't have a plan for it on when construction can start.
Yeah.
Is there any design parameters required first before you move into this, or you pretty much have the space allocation built out? Or what?
We've, as far as plans and
Yeah,
all
y'all
that,
already
we've-
have architectural renderings and all that?
we've got
Also, you
everything,
just-
everything's in this packet. I've already been through the architects, I've been through plans,
So
I've been.
it is designed?
Yes.
We just need to
Yes.
place a bid out for construction?
Yes, I've got to have,
A
I've
spot,
got some place to
location.
sit myself down in it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, SFM.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the council's time and support of the Hoover Met Complex. As we all know, sports facilities management's a little bit of a different animal. We're not a traditional department. We're revenue generating. But for our operating budget, just so everybody knows, we have no additional requests for funding or positions. We are anticipating and projecting our FY25 year to be similar to what we've achieved the last couple of years, and that's generating over $4 million and a net income to the city of excess of $1 million. So we all know that we've got the crown jewel for facilities, and that positions us to compete with anybody in the United States. We're generating $90 million of economic impact. We've met with the Hoover Met Complex Advisory Committee. We've really tried to focus on some strategic planning to make sure that we're having a long-term plan to keep our facilities state-of-the-art so that we can benefit, the residents can benefit from the usage of our facility, as well as continuing to generate economic impact. So for some of our requests, from a vehicle request, we're requesting 3 utility vehicles, total of $45,000. There's been some history there. We used to have utility vehicles through the fleet program, but some of the prior SFM employees abused that and mismanaged it. And so for the last 2 or 3 fiscal years, we've been renting from Jerry Pate golf carts, and we've been spending over $20,000 a year on rentals. So from a fiscal management standpoint, I'm giving you my word that we will take great responsibility and great care of these vehicles. And so it'd be more prudent for us just to purchase those and maintain those than to continue to rent each year. And then we're continuing to get more and more requests for lacrosse and soccer, 7v7 and 9v9, which goes crossways on our lacrosse and soccer fields. We're putting down temporary paint. And so we're asking for a paint extractor in the tune of about $24,000. We've had to try to pressure wash that off, and that's not really been a very good solution. And so to protect the life of the turf, we would like to invest in this paint extractor. Carpet squares in the Finley Center. We have had the original carpet in there since the facility opened in 2017. This $77,600 represents about a fourth of the floor, 20,000 square feet. We're getting more and more non-sporting events in there. But as you can imagine, we're getting stains, tears, rips. And then with the SEC baseball tournament and some other events, we're being asked to carpet more than just the 83,000 square feet. We're carpeting the track, we're carpeting hallways, and so we just literally don't have enough inventory. So we're recommending that we purchase 20,000 square feet of carpet tiles. That will just give us the inventory to throw out the ones that are no longer usable, but still have enough to cover all of our events. And then the resurfacing of the wood floors and courts in the Finley Center, we've got $35,000 here. That's about a $70,000 project. We're asking $35,000 to be set aside. This is a project that we would ultimately like to do next year, but further conversation really needs to be had before we make this investment. As you know, the floor was replaced at the Finley Center and a permanent floor went in. The flooring company did not do a really good job with a substructure. So we are very limited with our weight capacity on there. And so I think the bigger conversation needs to be had at some point of how soon do we replace the floor as opposed to just resurfacing it. And so no sense spending $70,000 on resurfacing it if we ultimately decide in 3 or 4 years we're gonna have to replace that. The conduit and electrical boxes behind home plate at our turf baseball fields and our ADA ramp at the Finley Center, those are being taken care of through existing operating funds that Parks and Rec had excess of, so those can be scratched. Regulation pitching mound, as you guys know, we have a ton of usage on our baseball fields, and so we, because of the turf, we do have temporary mounds. Last year, the integrity of the structure of one of our mounds went out on us, so we had to replace that last year. So we do possess 4 mounds for our 4 turf fields. We're asking for an investment of about $18,500 to have a backup system, just because it's being used so many times of the year. And then to go along with those mounds, the pitcher tends to dig at the rubber and also drag his foot, and so we're constantly putting in new turf strips to replace that so we don't have to replace the entire mound. So those Velcro strips come to about $10,000. Another request on here that's really, quite honestly, more of a want than a need, and in good conscience, I can't request that for this particular year, but we're looking at 30 fixed logo trash cans. As you know out there, we've got 150 acres, got trash cans out there, they blow around, those types of things, but I think what I'd like to do is better research that before we make an investment and really look to see what's the right number, what's the right product to put out there. So that would be something that I would not ask. And then the last request that we have from the Hoover Met Complex is at our baseball turf fields. We have a gravel lot back behind fields 4 and 5 that has some fence and some weeds growing. We'd like to asphalt that. We just spent last year $80,000 on a temporary fencing system. So we'd like to have a little bit more of a sophisticated structure to allow us to keep our materials and keep it neat and tidy and clean and whatnot. And then lastly, I know that some of my colleagues have already presented other items like Jason Franklin and Charles Yates, and so this may be duplicative, but I just want to reiterate, you know, we do have a piece missing that's very important to our residents out at our playground. That's about a $20,000 investment, but that is heavily used, and so I think that that would be wise. The outfield wall, plywood, and painting at the stadium is something that's desperately needed. And then our padding at the multipurpose and baseball fields are just getting weathered as after 5 or 6 years, just it would cosmetically look a lot better. And then I don't know if it's been presented or not, but I just wanted to plant the seed, whether it's this year or next year. Our RV pedestals in our RV park, we've got 170 spaces. A lot of those are starting to break down, rust. We're generating over $1 million in revenue through the RV park. We're looking to increase our fees out there to generate even more. So that'd be something that I would ask you guys to be mindful of to reinvest into our facility. So that's about $225,000 there that we're recommending at this point for capital projects out at the Met.
Any questions?
I'd like to make a comment here just for clarification. As you look at this, we've tried to combine, we're using 2 organization codes to track activity at the Hoover Met Complex. And the SFM operations are being tracked in a fund, 121, like they're a department of the city. But that fund is accounting for all of the revenues. It really is trying to account for the operational side of what SFM helps us with the Met Complex. And so that portion of the budget really is meant to account for the expenditures that SFM would encounter. And then, of course, either we would pay or we would reimburse them for as a matter of just monthly reconciliations that we do with them. But Fund 121 is supposed to be just the operating side of the Met Complex. And then you'll see there's another fund, 101, 5243. That is where the maintenance side of the capital structure, the cleaning, that would be city expenses, the management fees that we pay to SFM, those would come out of that org. And just for better reporting, we wanted to combine both of those pieces together so that you could see not just the cost of operating the Met Complex, but also the city's investment and just overall operations of keeping it in good working order. So if there's questions about that, I can answer more questions about that. But
Any questions about
wanted to let
that
you know.
before we move on to Moose? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Evening, Mr. President, Council. Thank you for your time this evening. Normally, this is the point where I point out that software and hardware maintenance increases by 5 to 10% every year before I start my foray into what I want or need. This year, though, we're actually only asking for 1% increase. We've worked diligently this year to renegotiate contracts, consolidate systems where possible, as well as implementing new systems that are more efficient. So we're looking at $48,000 for an operating cost increase. If you look further down in the budget list, you'll actually see where I believe there's about $190,000 of new software. $150,000 of that's already been incorporated into the existing operating budget. Ms. Carrier's $50,000 for the risk replacement software is the only part that's really looking at being needing funding for. Part of that new software is first due for the fire department. It's a new reporting system on how they track all of their statistics, information, call time. That leads into their accreditation process as well. You'll also see on their Barracuda system, that's where we've upgraded our security platforms, our endpoint detection, our server management, all type of malware and vicious attacks like that. So that's the operating side of that. Any questions about that part? Okay. Capital is also less this year due to equipment not being available. The money you allocated last year, we literally just got $750,000 worth of equipment delivered this week from this past budget. So we'll be spending the next 6 to 9 months implementing that new system. The only 2 items on there are the police laptop replacements that we broke the cost up over 5 years. So I believe we're stepping into year 4 of that. And then also our firewalls are split up over 3 years, and we're coming into year 3 of that for that cost. That'll actually come due in May for that. Any questions about that? Okay, we have no staffing request. The only other request on there is $45,000 for a vehicle. That would be for me. I currently receive a stipend. My team and myself were 24/7, so we respond after hours. We support public safety in the city, and we spend a lot of time visiting all the facilities that Hoover has to make sure the network and everything else is up and operating. And that's it.
Any questions?
Thank you, guys.
All right. Derek asked for 2 minutes, if you want to do that before we close.
Probably won't take that long. So I'll just read something for informational, because I asked for it, and thank you, President Leiter. I requested for evaluation to be performed on the city council from a budgetary standpoint, just so we will know. And our budget on the city council is relatively non-existent. But just as for informational, mayor's salary, top 6 cities in the state, Huntsville, 152,000, Birmingham, 107, Montgomery, 95,000, Mobile, 125,000. Might have messed that up. I think that's Huntsville. It should be Huntsville. I think it's 174,000, and City of Hoover is 90,000. I already made a comment about the mayor. One thing I think needs to be changed. City council, Huntsville council per council person, 38,000. Birmingham, 37,000. Montgomery, 18,000. Mobile, 24,600. Tuscaloosa, 39,000. And the city of Hoover, $7,200, so $7,200. So if you want to make any change to the pay scale for the council and or the mayor, that has to be done in this fiscal year for the following. It has to be done a certain period of time before. That'll be a decision that the council may, if any. I'm used to not getting paid for city government, so it's okay. But this is the perfect time to discuss that if we want to make any type of changes. Thank you.
All right, well, as we've done in years past, I'll put together a spreadsheet. Yeah, all of you send me your concerns. What I do is I take that spreadsheet, put it together, get it to the two of you, and get it to the mayor, and show you kind of where we are. Unofficial tally on certain items. I've heard from most of the council on a few items already, so we're already in that process, but we'll take this plus what you're going to give us in a special call meeting and put that together and get that to you as quickly as we can. Any other comments before we close?